Welcome back to another episode of The Road Chose Me. And today I've got a big grab bag episode of all your questions about exploring up here in the north. So what do I do about mosquitoes? What do I do about heating my vehicle when it's getting cold? What about internet access? What about exploring up here in the middle of winter? All of these things that you guys have asked about and a few more are coming up in today's episode. So let's get right into it. Tons of stuff to cover. And I'm here on the shores of the beautiful Yukon River at my friend's cabin, and I'll show you around at the end. I'll show you where I am. So let's get right into it. So it's a beautiful fall day here. I'm actually just outside Whitehorse, and it's a couple of degrees below freezing. So winter is coming. There's a good dusting of snow on the mountains now, but so far we've been lucky. It hasn't snowed down here. And you know, relatively speaking, it isn't cold at all yet, given that it should snow and probably stick on the ground by the end of the month. So lots of people have been asking me, what do I do about heating my vehicle? And keep in mind, you're going to be up here on the Alaska Highway in June, July, August, so you don't really need to worry about it. It's not going to be as cold as it is right now. But what do? I don't do anything. My Jeep was purpose built for my Africa expedition, so I never intended to use it in cold weather, certainly nothing near freezing, so I didn't add any kind of heating or insulation at all. So what have I been doing? Obviously when the engine's running, I can run the main Jeep heater and that warms up the inside nicely, but I would never leave that running when I'm not actually driving. I just can't bring myself to use all that extra gas. So the interior falls to the same temperature as outside, basically. And so what I end up doing is I just have a good sleeping bag and I wear really good clothes. I'm reading a book right now about Arctic exploration, and the guy says that he learned from the Inuit people that the trick isn't to heat the air that surrounds you. That's really inefficient. The trick is to just wear really good clothing and your body will provide all the heat it needs as long as you can trap it. So even though it looks like I'm wearing jeans right now, I actually have a pair of thermal merino wool long johns underneath. I also have a merino wool shirt on, then obviously this puffy, and of course my toque. As long as I keep moving, I'm fine right now. I don't even have a pair of gloves on. But obviously as night comes on or when it's time to set up camp, I'm putting on gloves, I'm putting on a necky, maybe even yet another layer to keep the wind out. So my trick right now for this trip is just to wear better clothes and to have a good sleeping bag. And that's plenty enough at this time of year. Obviously, if I was coming fully in winter, it would be a totally different story. On that, I never designed my water system to actually handle cold weather. The tank is mounted underneath the Jeep and it's just plastic. So if it froze, which it certainly would, I'm certain that the expanding ice would crack the tank and break it and probably crack all of my hoses and fittings. So before I even drove up here, I actually emptied my water tank completely. So basically it's just unusable in the winter. And if I did want to design a vehicle for winter travel, I figure I'd have to put the tank inside, I'd have to insulate it, and then potentially I'd have to have some sort of heater for the inside of the vehicle to make sure that it never gets so cold. And there's a couple of different options there. Quite a few companies now make heaters that burn diesel. They're really common. And there are a couple too that burn gasoline. I know my friend John from Venture Forward, the YouTube channel, he has a heater in his Jeep that has the same pop-up roof as mine, and he's been happy with it. It works really well. So again, if I was going to do full winter exploration in this vehicle, that's something I would look into, but I'm not going to do it for right now. That's not currently in my immediate future, but you never know. The other thing you need to think about, which a lot of people aren't aware of, is when it gets really cold, so let's say below about -30, whether that's Celsius or Fahrenheit, it doesn't really matter, then you have to really think about whether the vehicle will start or not. And there's a few tricks up here. So everyone who lives in the north, they have 3 ways to heat their vehicle. And basically every single vehicle in the north has these 3 things. And without them, your vehicle won't start at all. And because my Jeep is Canadian spec, it actually came from the factory with what's called a block heater. And a block heater is essentially a kettle element inside the engine. It goes inside one of the Welsh plugs. And so I have a plug-in where I can just plug that into, a regular 110 volt wall outlet. And basically then it is heating the coolant that is inside the engine block. And so when it's past about minus 30 or minus 35, you really want to do this so the engine is already slightly warm, or at least not minus 30, before you even try to turn the key. The next thing that you need to do is you need to keep your batteries warm, because once batteries get really cold, they're not going to put out nearly as much energy. And so when you turn the key, there's hardly any energy to turn the starter, and probably your car won't even start. So what we do there is we put a battery blanket around the batteries. So it's just like an electric blanket in your bed, and again, you plug it into a 110 wall outlet and that'll warm up your batteries. And then the final thing is you want to think about how cold your engine oil is as well. And so virtually everyone up here has what's called an oil pan heater. And it's like a stick-on electric blanket, and it goes on the oil pan or the sump on the bottom of the engine, and that's to try and keep the engine oil warm. Or again, at least to keep it warmer than, minus 35 or minus 40 ambient temperature. So basically every vehicle here in Whitehorse and further north and all of Alaska, we all have these 3 plug-in heating elements. And the usual wisdom is for every 5 degrees below, I think about minus 25, you want to leave it plugged in for an hour. So when it's minus 30, plug it in for an hour, let it all kind of get a little bit warm, then start your engine. If it's 35, you want 2 hours. If it's minus 40, do it for 3 hours. Once it gets past minus 40, most people leave their car plugged in pretty much non-stop. Some people won't even turn their engines off when it gets below about minus 45. So yeah, these are things you really have to think about when you're up here, or if you're thinking of coming up here in the dead of winter, because it really will be that cold and your vehicle really won't start once it's past minus 35 or minus 40. The other thing is, even if it did start, you're going to do a lot of engine damage because your engine oil essentially looks like margarine or butter. I've seen it in containers sitting around in the winter. You can turn the container upside down and the engine oil doesn't even move. Regular engine oil will do that somewhere around minus 30. Synthetic won't do it until about minus 40 or minus 45. But it really does happen. So once you turn your engine on, you have literally no liquid oil for the first however many minutes. So something to really think about if you're planning a trip into the Arctic in the winter. And just to really emphasize how cold it can get up here, I was once in Dawson City. The high temperature for the day was minus 48 Celsius, which is minus 55 Fahrenheit. And remember, that does not include wind chill. We don't usually talk about that up here because it's not really real anyway. So minus 55 Fahrenheit, daytime high. When you start driving like that, your tires are not even actually round. I really mean that. They legitimately freeze flat on the bottom. And so for the first 5 minutes of driving, you can actually feel vibrations until your tires warm up just enough to unfreeze. Yes, I'm being very serious. Something else lots of people have asked me about is, what do I do about mosquitoes and bugs? So they can be absolutely horrendous up here in the north. Think of the worst mosquitoes you've ever seen in your entire life and multiply it by at least 100. I've seen them bad enough where I physically don't want to get out of my tent for an entire day. And not only are there mosquitoes, there's also black flies, which love to get around the edges of your face. We also have little critters called no-see-ums, is what they're called in Canada. Some people call them midges. They're the ones that are so tiny you almost can't even see them. And they have this thing where they bite you and you can't feel it, and then like an hour later it's really itchy. So we have a lot of flies up here in the summer, especially for those 3 months, June, July, August. So you want to think about that. Definitely you're going to bring strong bug spray. Get something with DEET in it. Probably 30% DEET is what you're looking for. I once bought 99% DEET. Obviously it's not good for your skin and you want to wash it off as soon as you can, but having strong bug spray is going to help keep your sanity. Try hard not to get it on your hands though, and make sure it doesn't get on your food. Next thing, you're going to have long pants, long sleeves. I even have like a bug face net. You can pick them up, they're really cheap. When they're bad, it kind of brings a lot of sanity, even though it's not the most fashionable thing. And then finally, here at the back of my Jeep, I actually made up this bug net. I made this for Africa, but it works here as well. It really is just a piece of mosquito netting, and I sewed on little Velcro squares on the edges so I can Velcro it to the edges. There's kind of carpet on the inside of my Jeep hardtop. And so this is just to stop all the mosquitoes swarming into the Jeep when I'm here in the back cooking, because that's really annoying. Either they go upstairs if I have the bed open and then they're in my sleeping area. Or the next day when I drive again, the whole driving compartment is full of mosquitoes. And they do a really good job of hanging around my legs and biting my legs while I'm driving, and there isn't much I can do about it. So have a think about bug spray, but also bug netting for your sleeping and living area. It's going to bring you a lot of sanity when you're up here in the north. Next thing people have asked about is internet access and working remotely while you're up here. So as you drive up the Alaska Highway, every single town has cell service. Certainly 3G and 4G is all over the place. And they're all going to have high-speed internet as well, usually cable, sometimes DSL in the really small towns. So you'll definitely get internet access in every town. Between towns, you can expect to go hundreds and hundreds of miles with zero cell service. You can't even make an emergency call, and certainly you're not going to have internet. Once you're on the Dempster Highway, the Dalton Highway, or if you try to get remote, plan on having no connectivity at all. You might get service here and there, or you might find some sort of hotel that will have internet if you pay for it, but my advice is plan not to have it, or certainly expect it to be terribly slow. Maybe you could send and receive a couple of emails, but that's about it. But certainly if you want to work remotely while you're on the Alaska Highway and exploring Alaska, you can absolutely do that. You just might have to plan to say, okay, you know, for these few days we'll have really good connectivity, then we might not for a few days. So you'll have to work around that. So that's a bit of a grab bag of random stuff that you might need to know about if you're going to drive up here to the Yukon or Alaska. So I'm going to walk over to the river. I'll show you the beautiful setting here. But what I really want to emphasize is my time in the north is coming to an end. I probably only have 1 or 2 more videos for you guys. So I really want you to ask questions about what you want to know about. This is about helping you get up here and have your own adventures. So let me know down in the comments. Please, there's no such thing as a stupid question. Ask away and I'll either reply to your comment or I'll do another grab bag video like this. So if this has been helpful, do hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Though the adventures in the north are winding down, I'm going to go back to my kind of Overland university style. I've got a lot of topics to cover about how to build a vehicle and how to travel internationally. And so I hope you look forward to that. And in the meantime, here I am. That's the Yukon River right there. And well, I can see it, but you might not on the GoPro. There's a good amount of snow on the mountain that's like right there at the tip of my finger. So until next time, I am going to enjoy these beautiful fall days, and fingers crossed I can get out of here before the snow starts flying in about a week's time. Until then, have fun out there. Maybe I'll see you on the road.